scrutiny of Dr. Anthony Fauci ramps up in the wake of a growing lab leak theory. He's lashing out now against those who are coming after him. Watch.
If you are trying to, get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science.
Okay, so here is what Dr. Fauci has said over the last year. Follow this narrative closely if you can.
That it took to get to the point where it is now is totally consistent with a jump of a species from an animal to a human.
It's obviously in China's interest to find out exactly what it is. I think the accusatory part about it is only going to get them to pull back even more. All of us have been open-minded enough to know that until you nail down exactly what it is, you always must leave open the possibility with an open mind that there could be a leak.
So you can see the evolution there in those comments. My next guest is among the Republicans who is now calling for Dr. Fauci to step aside. Senator Marco Rubio of Florida joins us now. Senator, always good to have you with us. Thank you so much for being here. I want to play one more soundbite from Dr. Fauci here, talking about masks, and then I'd love for you to tell me why you and this other group of your colleagues feel this way. Watch this.
That issue with masks is people want to fire me or put me in jail for what I've done, namely follow the science. I could go the next half an hour going through each and every point that they make. It's preposterous.
Senator, what's your reaction to that, and why do you feel strongly that he needs to step aside?
Here's what's happened with Dr. Fauci, who I didn't dislike and actually defended early on in the pandemic, and that is he's now, he's gotten on the cover of magazines, he's become this national figure, he enjoys, I think, a little bit the celebrity that's come with it and the role that he's played, almost like a super political, super governmental role as the central authority that everybody has to listen to. I think he's gotten, high on his own supply a little bit here in regards to this, and I think it's gone too far in many cases. It's not that he's speaking out publicly. You see the statements that he's now making. He sounds more like a political figure than he does like a healthcare expert. But that's not the reason why I think he should be fired. I think the reason he should be fired is because he's lost a tremendous amount of credibility among the American people. I think he's actually done very significant damage to public health. People, the next time we have a pandemic, are going to remember a time and era where Dr. Fauci knew certain things that we now knew he did, and he either kept them from the American people or lied by omission. For example, on discrediting anyone who even raised the possibility that COVID originated because there was an accident in a lab in Wuhan, China. And there's a lot of reasons to believe that's possible, at least as possible as the zoonotic, which is what he's talking about from an animal to a human. I mean, Wuhan is a major metropolitan center, large, enormous city. There aren't any bats in Wuhan. They still have not produced the animal that it jumped over from. And we know that in the laboratory that coincidentally happens to be located in that city, they conduct experiments on how you can genetically change a virus that occurs naturally to make it infectious and even to make it more infectious to humans. He knew all this, and he's tried to either lie or lie by omission, and he's lost all credibility, and not just in my mind, the mind of a lot of Americans. He's now actually doing harm to science. He's not helping science.
Sure. Here's the thing. I think our American audience's head is blown up right now. Tony Fauci has sat in front of Jim Jordan at the House testimony, and he sat in front of Rand Paul, who both lit him up, and other senators and congressmen too, but those two specifically. How can you sit here and tell us, giving all of his denials, and these are categorical denials. Now you're saying, hey, it's just not Wuhan and this one thing. It's really with the People's Liberation Army, essentially their bioweapons program. They have a much deeper relationship in doing this. How can he sit there and essentially, I guess you're accusing him of either misleading people or actual perjury? Is this the point you're trying to get to?
Steve, I can't be clearer about this. He is lying. He is lying. You only have to look at the research papers. I'm happy to post them online. I wish I could interview Fauci myself. I wish I could grill him myself, because there are dozens and dozens and dozens of scientific papers done by the Wuhan Institute of Virology, many in conjunction with Chinese military scientists. And at the bottom it says, funded by the NIH. He might be using some slippery gain-of-function definition in his denials, but the bottom line is these research projects are genetically manipulating coronaviruses to see if they can infect humans, to make them more infectious and transmissible, dangerous and deadly. So he's lying, and there are no interviews that he's done that are not with friendly audiences where anyone's actually asking him the real question. And maybe the congressman, and I have great respect for them because at least they're grilling him, but maybe they haven't seen the physical research papers that list this work, or maybe they don't have the understanding. I've spoken to scientists about what work was going on. Of course I have. I've interviewed them for the book. But the other fascinating thing, Steve, is that this last research project in late 2019, that Chinese military scientist, just a couple of months later, in February 2020, went on to lodge the first ever patent application for a coronavirus vaccine. February 2020. That is such an early time frame. And I interviewed Nikolai Petrovsky, who develops vaccines for COVID-19 and for other illnesses, diseases as well. He says that time frame indicates that they probably started work on the vaccine prior to when they admitted there was an outbreak.
The media, the Democrats, and the so-called experts are now finally admitting what I first said 13 months ago. The evidence demonstrates that the virus originated in a Chinese government lab. Couldn't say it. You couldn't say it. And Dr. Fauci, who I actually got along with, he's a nice guy. He's a great promoter, Not a great doctor, but he's a hell of a promoter. He likes television more than any politician in this room, and they like television. But he's been wrong on almost every issue. And he was wrong on Wuhan and the lab also, very wrong. And we ended the payments. You know, they were started in 2014. And then I can tell you, Mark Meadows came in, and I talked to him, and he saw what I saw. And I said, what the hell's going on? When did that start? Started in 2014, and we ended it. Our administration ended it. But generally speaking, I went the opposite way of Dr. Fauci, what he was saying. For instance, Fauci said, do not close our borders to China or Europe. But I did it anyway. And months later, he said I made the right decision and saved thousands and thousands of lives. He said it was the right decision, but he did not want to close that border. I said, wait a minute, there's tremendous infection over there. We can't let this happen. And we closed it, and I think we saved hundreds of thousands of lives. You remember the number was 2.2 million people in our country who were expected to die. Fauci said powerfully at the beginning, no masks. You remember that? No, masks don't work, masks don't work. And then he went into masks, and then he became a radical masker. I would call it, if you have 3, if you have 4, get a pair of goggles also, ideally. And let's wear them for another 5 or 6 years. But Fauci has perhaps never been more wrong than when he denied the virus and where it came from. The time has come for America and the world to demand reparations and accountability from the Communist Party of China. We should all declare within one unified voice that China must pay. They must pay.
如果连纪念当年逝去的英灵的人都没有了，那才是我们中华民族真正没有希望的时刻。我的父母告诉我，我就是他们生命的延续。既然我是他们生命的延续，那么6·4的精神就没有断绝。今天我能够站在这里，就是对6·4精神的传承。每一个时代的变迁都需要时间的酝酿。面对暴政，我们能做的恰恰是不断向世界揭露他们的丑恶行径。我们要清楚地认识到，中共越是封锁消息，越说明他们很清楚自己曾经犯下的血债，并对此极度恐惧，因为他们已经体尝到了，当人民走上街头，大声呐喊对自由民主的呼求的时候，再强大的专制政权也会摇摇欲坠。既然他们还记得，那我们又有什么理由去忘记？我们的不断传讲与纪念，就是要让全世界知道，中国曾经有，现在有，未来还更有一大批前仆后继为中国民主事业而奋斗的有良知的人。作为6·4二代，我们在校园、课堂工作之余，向周遭的朋友、同学、老师传讲6·4事件的经过以及中国人权现状，都是对未来中国的民主自由而做出的贡献。我们的父辈们仍未放弃，那就请让你们的孩子来一起和你们努力吧。相信我们的不懈努力终有结果，真正的民主自由的阳光也终会照耀在我们的身上。在这里，我再次向1989年为中国民主自由而不幸牺牲的英灵们献上我们最诚挚的敬意。谢谢大家。